Welcome, welcome everybody. Let's take some time to get centered, settled into the moment, into the space, into the frame of mind that invites some reverence, some curiosity, and some presence to the topic. So take a breath. And as you exhale, find your seat and lift your spine. And invite awareness of the breath to increase. And to enhance the experience of nowness. Notice how many thoughts are entering your mind space, persisting, resisting your attempts to be present fully, and just acknowledge them, say hello. Don't try to push them away. Just see them for what they are, just thoughts, little blips in the mind stream. All right, and then come back to your immediate surroundings. I did not distribute or remind you to have at home the invocation to Patanjali, so we won't do call and response. And I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to say it. So just let the syllables, the words, the feeling tone of the words be absorbed into your awareness. And remember that what we are doing is we are giving thanks and recognition and honoring where these teachings came from to the person who understood them enough to communicate them. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopa karotam pravaram munina patanjalim pranjali ranatosmi abahu purushakaram Shanka chakrasi darinam sahasra shirasam svetam pranamami patanjali. Hari Om. And then in English, to the noblest of sages, Patanjali, who gave us yoga for serenity of mind, grammar for purity of speech, and medicine for the perfection of the body, I salute. I salute before Patanjali, whose upper body has a human form, whose arms hold a conch and a disc and a sword, who is crowned by 1,000-headed cobra. O incarnation of Adishesa, my humblest salutations to thee. Okay, that's all. I'm not going to say anything more about that tonight. So our discussion tonight is going to be in three parts. The first part is about the conversation about non-attachment. The second part is going to be about the idea of samadhi, which you may already be familiar with as the 8th of the 8 limbs. And in the first book of the sutras, it takes on a little bit of a different meaning. So that's an interesting thing to investigate. I mean, it's interesting to me. I hope it becomes interesting to you. And then the third part is going to be about a little bit of a glimpse into the practice aspect of the sutras before we get the actual laid out practice in book 2. There are a couple of little glimpses of it in book 1, and we'll talk about those tonight. And one of them is, if you took the meditation course last, whenever that was, winter, one of them is the 4 immeasurables. So we're going to revisit those or visit them for the first time, perhaps, if that's you. So, and in between those parts, we're going to do a little bit of a practice, and the practice is going to evoke what we've talked about. So I'm not going to talk at you for 90 minutes, even though I probably could. I don't want to. That's not my intention. Thank you, Andre. All right. I don't need my laptop. I'm gonna use it as a page holder. That's fine. Oh, look at that. It's so funny. The reflection of it in the camera on the screen, it looks like an old-fashioned typewriter because it has the pages coming up out of it. If you're old enough to remember that. All right. So on your reference, the select sutras, we're going to revisit 2 of them that I think I touched on last week, but we're going to revisit them in a little more detail. And that is the first one, because that is the one where we first get the teaching from Patanjali about being unattached. So, and it is that the vrittis, remember the vrittis are the mind, the flippings of the mind are thoughts, are flippy thoughts. The vrittis are settled through practice and non-attachment. Abhyasa is practice and vairagya is non-attachment. So how do we do that? And what is the difference? So in my very first Sanskrit class ever, which is a whole other story that I'll tell you sometime. Do you know this story? It's not really a story, it's stupid. But in my very first Sanskrit class ever, the teacher offered the paradigm of, offered a new paradigm for how to view everything. And she said, rather than viewing things, thoughts, feelings, circumstances, relationships, experience, the world itself and everything in it, rather than viewing it as good and bad, nice and mean, black and white, pick your pairs of opposites rather than viewing things from that opposing paradigm. You can view them from the paradigm of Abhyasa and Vairagya, which is that you're either on your point of focus in your purpose, or get ready for this because it's not what you think. It's not that you're not on your point of focus or that you're not fulfilling your purpose. It's that you are working your way back to it. For me, I don't know how old I was. It was 2002. I was whatever I was. It was a long time ago. It was 22 years ago. That was mind-blowing and life-changing. Because all of a sudden, whatever mistakes I thought I was making were no longer the mistakes. They were stones on the path back to what I wanted as a life of integrity and clarity and purpose and love. So Abhyasa is being on your point of focus, and Vairagya is finding your way back to it. And when you're finding your way back to it, you are unattaching, non-attaching from the things that pull you away from it. This is what non-attachment means. It's disentangling yourself from the chains that hold you captive to your own selfish, self-serving devices, and allow you by unattaching those chains to find your way back to the larger self-serving, not the selfish self, not the individual self, but the connected self of the all, the Atman, the Brahman, the spirit self. And remember that yoga is not connecting your selfish self to your bigger self. It's clarifying. It is concentrating your essence of your larger self, of your spirit. The yoga as a classical Indian system of philosophy, along with its sister school Sankhya, you don't have to know that, they both share the vision of what exists in the world and how people are constructed. And people are made of stacks or ladders. The Buddhists believe almost the same thing. The Buddhists have the skandhas, the piles or the aggregates. So these are levels of being that descend from a common source, an ineffable, unknowable from the common mind source. They descend, and then they begin to progressively coarsen or thicken until we have this, until we have heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, And our work is to disentangle from the head, shoulders, knees, and toes, but especially the head, so that we can remember, get a tiny little taste, a tiny little glimpse, a little sunshine, a little shaft of lucidity from that source. And so non-attachment, Vairagya, is starting to shed a little bit of the weight of the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. It's affected, it is created by Vairagya by a systematic contemplation of the entire system of the world, a concentration of knowledge to see this for what it is, which is in the end, nothing. It's just atomic particles that are mostly space. And that's a scientific fact. All of this, just atomic particles made of mostly space that are fleeting, that are never, ever identical from one moment to the next. So what purpose does it serve us to get attached to the thing when it's just always changing and it's going to go away? If you remember or have studied with me or somebody else the gunas, the three constituents of nature, it's okay, Beth, I got you. Just in really quickly review, Rajas is the catalytic, often angry, sometimes excitable energy, the thing that makes things grow and the things that makes things fight. We need them both, right? That's Rajas. Tamas is the opposite of that. It's the thing that that grounds us, that's heavy, that stabilizes, but can also depress. And sattva is the luminous quality. And in the Bhagavad Gita, what we're trying to do is to find our way to sattva. In the Yoga Sutras, we're trying to eliminate all of them. But the first stage is to get to sattva. The first stage is to minimize the pull of rajas and tamas, which is another way of saying vairagya, another way of saying finding your way back to the point of focus, which is illuminated, which is a quality of lightness. Light in both senses of the word. And it's the goal in minimizing rajas and tamas is to find the impetus to seek whatever practices help us realize the truth of things. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, our young hero, whose teacher, Krishna, is showing him the way of dispassion, the way of non-attachment. Arjuna says to Krishna, this is crazy. How am I supposed to do that? My mind is harder to control than the wind because it's fickle, it's powerful, and it's stubborn. And Krishna says, there's two ways, and you need them both. It's practice and non-attachment. He uses the same words. It's abhyasa and vairagya. So remember, the Gita precedes the sutras by a good 500 probably years. But all of these ideas are already in play in the milieu of ancient Indian philosophical thought. And so they are borrowing from each other all the time. And sometimes it comes out word for word. They're singing the same songs. Gita means song, by the way. So the question that comes up every time we study non-attachment or consider it as a desirable quality, what about the people I love? What about my partner, my children, my parents, my best friends, my pets, my community? Am I supposed to not care about them anymore? No. You're supposed to care very much about them. So how can we practice non-attachment in relationship? I'm going to put that question out first before I just give you an answer, because it's a really important thing to come to terms with. So any thought? Oh, we're going to have to pass the microphone in the room. Any thoughts? Let me also invoke here the principle of step forward and step back. If you're someone who doesn't often contribute to the conversation, maybe this is a moment where you have some ideas that you want to share. And if not, that's okay too.
Annie, I have a thought.
Okay, Nivi, thank you.
So the way I approach it is through immense gratitude for the people in my life. Appreciate them while they're here.
I love that as an approach. And it's interesting because I remember asking Adil Palkivala once, I don't see gratitude in the sutras. There's no mention of gratitude. And boy, I wish I remember what he said. But I think maybe you're really onto something, because gratitude yeah, okay, I got it. Absolutely, you're onto something. Gratitude implies that you realize the thing is not guaranteed. And this speaks to impermanence. This speaks to the recognition that all of this is, to a certain extent, illusory. And so I think this is what he said, is that it's already implicit in the text. Because without gratitude, you everything is taken for granted as existent eternally, and it's just simply not. Nobody will argue that permanence exists in any real relative sense. Is there a hand raised? Is that Tara's hand raised?
Yeah. Hi, Yanni. Hey, everybody. I would say to embrace those we love for exactly who they are and where they are in their evolution. And I used to hear like accept each other, but even that to me feels conditional. To accept. It's like, okay, I'll accept, really to embrace and just to be grateful, like Nivi said, for who they are and what they bring like to my life, and not upset or disappointed about what they don't, because not everybody can be everything to you. And just be grateful for their 100% wherever that lies, wherever they are. um yeah.
Yeah. And that really speaks to what I remember is one of the teachings that made a big impression on me. And I think it was Tara Brach who brought this forward.
Yeah.
And it was that if you're saying I love you and following it up with, but I wish you would ABCD 1 2 3, that's not love.
Right.
That's attachment. So the difference between love and attachment from the perspective of these teachings is that when true love, the actual love, is absent of attachment, because, as Tara said, it's unconditional, and it is not about me. Love is, I think I'm saying this right, and I don't know where this comes from. Love is where I am not. Do you recognize that? So if attachment is, let's just pretend it's me, and I'm talking about Amir, and I'm very attached to him. We are very much like, what would we do without each other? For sure. I don't know what I would do without it. It would be horrible. But attachment is what I just said. That's attachment. I don't know what I would do about him. All of a sudden, that love is about me and what he gives to me. Actual love is, I love him, whether he's in my life or not in my life, or not on the earth any longer. That is love. And for those of us who lost people close to us, for me, having lost my mother at a young age, I find that incredibly comforting, because she's with me all the time. I mean, and especially in moments that, well, whatever, I feel her presence with me often, and I have love, but I can't be attached to that, because she hasn't been in my She hasn't been in my physical sphere since I was 23. So I've had to learn that aspect of non-attachment. You know, having a pet and losing a pet can be a real tangible lesson in that. And then of course the harder losses too, the sudden ones are the most difficult, because all of a sudden it feels wrong. It feels like an act of violence has happened to us when somebody we love dies. But it doesn't serve to relieve our suffering to see it that way. And to be able to see everything about our lives with, as Nibby said, with gratitude, and as Tara said, unconditionally appreciative and unconditionally generous. That's love without attachment. Would mm. Yeah. Did you hear that on Zoom? Andrea's talking about the idea of humble service, to be a giving presence with your friends and family and community. That because that's exactly it, because it doesn't serve, as you just said, it doesn't, that's not about ego. No, I think it is. It right, yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, you could argue like, well, why are you serving them? You know, who does it serve to serve? And if you're doing it as a self-serving, you know, with an expectation of reciprocity, and you know, so yeah, all of that. Yeah, yeah. The part for me is about like I love you, but I wish you would. But why can't you? You know, that's attachment. That's ego. That's about me. Okay. Are we ready to go to the next one? Are we satisfied with Abhyasa and Vairagya? All right. Sutra number 1.14. The practice of yoga will be firmly rooted when it is maintained consistently and with dedication over a long period of time. We touched on this last week, and I wanted to share a little bit more about some of the commentaries on it. One of them is, and remember that Edwin Bryant's book is pulling from the original and the ancient commentaries, like from the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries, those who provided the flesh to the knots of the sutras, untangling them a little bit. Okay, so when I say commentary, I'm using this as my primary reference to say that that this is what some of the early masters said about the sutras. So the idea was that it's the analogy of a garden to maintain the practice consistently and with dedication over a long period of time. So chitta, the mind field, the field of consciousness are and heart is included in that. Heart, mind are not differentiated in ancient India. This is the garden, and sattva, the luminous of the three gunas, the one that we're striving for initially, is like a bed of flowers, beautiful flowers in bloom in this garden, healthy, robust, vibrant flowers. And so the mind is the ground out of which the flowers grow. So we're seeking to cultivate a garden of healthy blossoms in the mind field. And Rajas and Tamas are the pesky weeds and the pesky pests, the biters, the encroachers, the stranglers, the volunteers that just drop in and you didn't want them and they're going to interfere with what you're trying to grow, the stuff that just shows up. So to realize the practice of yoga as a firmly rooted way to wake up is to keep tending the garden. You can't just do it once. You can't just do it once in a while. You can't just do it once a week. You can't even just do it once a day. It's always. Remember the first of the Yoga Sutras, Yoga, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Now the teaching begins. Every moment is now. Edwin Bryant himself gives a really interesting take here about why there are so many guru-based scandals and abuses of power in these circles. And this is not a modern phenomenon. This has happened since the beginning of time. And he suggests or offers that it may be because the perpetrator stopped practicing, because they said, I did it. I am awakened. I am realized. I don't have to work so hard at it anymore. Those weeds are going to come up. Isn't it? So he says, I highly recommend steering clear of anyone who says that they no longer have to practice. Understatement of the year. And then he shares, this is one of the ancient stories of the sage who was so intense about renunciation that he decided he was going to meditate underwater so that he was no longer distracted by the doings of the world. And so in particular, he was trying to escape the sensual temptations of real life and other people. So he dives down, puts on his scuba gear, whatever, and sits at the bottom of the ocean and meditates. And then after a while, 2 fish swim by and they begin to mate. And the sage is like, oh, oops. And all he could think about now was his sexual fantasies. He thought he was escaping. So the point here about maintaining a consistent practice with dedication over a long period of time is you cannot escape the world. And the practice cannot be one that draws the blinds and puts on the headset and darkens the room and eliminates the people from your life. The practice is to do it in the loudest, most distracting, most annoying, or most enticing places. And that's when you know it's real. One time I had to take my daughter to Disneyland. When the kids were little, we were like, we'll do anything for these children, but we're not ever taking them to Disney. Sorry, Nibby. But Alana was a competitive hip hop dancer. And so every spring they had their finals at Epcot in Orlando. So I had to go to Epcot twice. And the first time was so alarming to me. It was such a sensory overload that I I I sat on a bench and meditated in the middle of Epcot. And guess what? It didn't work. No, it did. It actually did work. I actually began to feel not just like connected to the place, but compassion for all the people around me that 10 minutes earlier I was hating on. And it enhanced my enjoyment of the whole thing. And I ended up like going to get fish and chips and hard cider with the other dance moms. I was a dance mom. And it was great fun. So as soon as I stopped trying to push it out and like stay in my hotel room, it became sweet and easy. And then I went back the next year and it was so much better. So in terms of making an effort, it really is about like outlining the stages of non-attachment. And one of the commentaries gives 4 stages. First one is just the simple initial effort. The second stage is noticing which of the external objects still call to you, whether in an enticing way or a repulsive way. Both same coin with different sides. Which of those external objects still make an effort to pull you away from your point of focus, and to give your attention to them and integrate them into your effort. The third stage is then target the internal attachments. And the internal attachments are those base psychological desires, needs for approval, yearning for respect, fear of being alone or of being ridiculed. All of those silent conversations we have in our head that we may not necessarily admit to out loud, but they're there. They're there for me, I promise you. What if I'm boring the hell out of these people? What if what I'm saying sounds stupid? I have those thoughts every time I teach. Because that's the way it is. And again, like back to the gurus, if anyone tells you they don't, steer clear. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. Anyway, so what this consistent effort does is slowly starves that what's referred to as that storehouse of karma, that invisible internal field where all those little seeds of doubt have been planted. And when we starve them of our attention and our conversation, the seeds die out. They no longer bear fruit. And that's what we're looking for. We want those seeds to no longer bear fruit. I really should have page numbered these pages. The 4th stage is, that's a good question. That's why I think I lost a page here somewhere. I don't know what I'll get back to you on that. Stage. I think I can tell you. Hold on. Let's see real quick. It's Sutra 1.14. Yeah, what if those thoughts, those thoughts that say, what if you lose your place during class and you have to look something? So what, right? I don't know. I'll at some point later. So Do you remember when I was describing the Vedas as ritualistic and did not allow room for direct realization, and that a lot of the sacrifices that they were performing during the Vedic period were so that people could get things? There was a deep and ingrained sort of lusty desire for earthly boons, like let me sacrifice this lamb so we can get more cows. Let me sacrifice this child so that the ones I have can be uh, fed better and stronger. Let me sacrifice this whatever so that we can have victory over our enemies. You know, very desire is very attached. And there in the Yoga Sutras are an implicit criticism of not implicit, explicit criticism of the Vedas. And also this shows up in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, those who are ignorant subscribe to the flowery words. Their hearts are filled with desires, intent on celestial realms. They take the path of performing rites. To such people attached to sensual enjoyment and opulence, whose minds have been stolen by these flowery words, a mind fixed in samadhi is not granted. So it's like they're not going to get it as long as they're doing this wheeling and dealing. And the point is that when you are, to this sutra in particular, doing your practice consistently over a period of time, it's worth paying attention to why you think you're doing it. Are you doing it for the glory, for the fame, for the good feeling, for the self-righteousness? Or are you doing it truly to be free? It's an important thing to contemplate. All right. One more, and then we're going to do a practice break. We're going to play with, yeah, okay. So Sutra 1.16, higher than renunciation is indifference to the gunas. So don't be like the sage who went underwater to meditate, like he was sort of on the right path. At least he was recognizing that those external pulls were too much for him. Excuse me. But even better than that, next step is be indifferent to the gunas. Recognize that there's going to be stuff that pulls you down. There's going to be stuff that lifts you up. And there's going to be stuff that feels light and airy and free. And all of it eventually will resolve if you stay on your point of focus. This stems from the perception of Purusha, the soul, as separate from you. In you, but not you. Not the you that you think you are. Purusha and Prakriti, different things. Prakriti is the gunas, all of the stuff of the world, and all of its play, and its dance, and its delight, and its horror. It's war, it's love, it's glory, it's desolation. That's Prakriti. And Purusha is the thing that can see it for what it is. The philosopher Kierkegaard said that you have to understand life backwards, but you have to live it forwards. You have to know that in the end, you're going to the place that you came from. You have to take that journey forward, but you have to understand that it happens backwards. He also said that when you label me, you negate me. When you label me as Annie, that's Prakriti. And you negate that I am actually the building that houses Purusha, which has no name. Now, here's an interesting little trick of mind, and it's going to come up later in our discussion of samadhi. But the classical yoga view is that there's only one prakriti and many purushas. And I've always thought that it was the opposite. Doesn't it seem like there's only one purusha, that the one that sees, and then all of these different prakritis? Prakriti is what manifests out of the potential, out of the field of potential. And there's only one field of potential. There's only one manifested universe. It just pops up in all these ways. But Purusha is considered to be unique to each sort of, I'm going to use the word soul. That might not be exactly accurate, but that we are many souls. You've heard that saying, like, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience. We're many, many spirits. And there's only one human experience. And it hurts. So, higher than renunciation, better than just being able to like push everything to the side and not respond or react to it, is that we are indifferent to the gunas and their play, because we are not that. That's just one thing that pops up in all these different ways, that we are separate, actually. All right. We're going to do a little movement now. Let's stand up. Well, wait, do questions? Do anybody? Questions? Okay. So let's stand up. And let's see if my camera remote works. Oh, look at that. So what I want to invite now is an experience of the gunas in play in the body. And a feeling of finding yourself of them, but not of them, if that makes any sense. So palms to the heart, and the play of the gunas is happening right now by tamas grounding you through the soles of your feet, rooting you down, giving you stability. And rajas is in play because it's the thing that got you up to begin with. And so it's the thing that now will allow you to drop your hands, take a deep breath, and raise your arms up, 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 up. And then exhale, fold forward. And sattva now is the feeling of letting go into this fold and allowing it to be what it is. Noticing that there may be some tightness, there may be some freedom, there may be some dinner getting dislodged. and that whatever's there, we can send it, so to speak, love and light. And now come up part way, bend your knees a little bit, look forward, lift the heart, climb your shoulder blades onto your back. And then exhale, fold back down. Inhale, reach all the way up. And hands together. And then again, inhale, reach up, 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 up. Exhale, fold down. And then just keep going, just like we have done already. Halfway up, take a breath, open the heart, and find the gunas in the body. And then find where you are not, where the ego is not. Find the sense of ineffable spirit. The thing that doesn't care how far you fold or how deeply you breathe or what your body looks like in the different positions. The part that sees that you're breathing, that sees what you look like, but doesn't care, just the witness. Do one or two more movements. And then whenever you're ready, take your time, come back to sit. And I know it's 8:30, but I really want to give us time and opportunity to share if anything came alive for you in that brief practice experience. Did anyone get a little glimpse of like that sattvic quality that bordered on like awakened spirit? Or are we just like so pulled by the body right now?
I think it was pretty nice to kind of get lost in the movement, right? In the breath, and the going up and down, and the stretching out the body, and just the flow of it. I think, especially with the eyes closed and not having to feel like you have to go anywhere else. So it's the same thing. It's almost like there's something soothing and comforting about a repetitive loop where you don't have to think about it. So you get an opportunity to let go and to get lost.
Yes, so much so. I love that, the repetitive loop. There's a calm aspect to it. And I love the way, Michelle, you frame that, like getting lost in the experience. Yeah. Yeah. Because when you get lost, in a positive way, it's like it's not about you anymore. Like getting lost to the self, to the ego. Powerful. Okay. So let's talk about samadhi. Sutra 1.17, samadhi consists of the consecutive mental stages of absorption. And again, there are 4. Absorption with physical awareness, absorption with the subtle awareness, absorption with bliss, and absorption with the sense of I-ness. Now, the I-ness is not the ego. The I-ness is Purusha. And I don't know why it says it that way, and it's confusing because in Sanskrit, the word is asmita, but asmita also means ego, and it's also one of the 5 base causes of suffering. So just whatever, in this context, it means Purusha. And that's that ladder. That's that backwards forming ladder, the stacks, that we have to move forward through to realize our potential, our true spirit. So these teachings of the sutras are intended to be esoteric teachings, like symbols on a map that we can follow along the path of first realizing that we can be absorbed in a physical awareness. Maria, we're on samadhi now, talking about Sutra 1.17. And then we can become absorbed with a subtle awareness, getting lost in that loop. And then we can be absorbed with a sense of bliss, a sense of like, oh, the sun is shining and that's all that matters. And then absorption ultimately with the aspect of the knower without worrying about what is known any longer. This is a quote from one of the commentaries. Consciousness of Purusha flows through the Prakritic Chitta. You know this now. You know what that means. Prakriti, the stuff, Prakritic Chitta. So like the stuff of the world that has voice in your mind. To connect, so consciousness of Purusha flows through that to connect with or be supported by an object of meditational focus. In other words, you can do anything. You can be reading a book, petting your dog, cooking your dinner, or doing downward facing dog. And that can be your object of meditation that supports this flow of Purusha through your Prakritic Chitta. Did you follow that? Yeah. Pick it. It doesn't matter. You can be smoking a cigarette. It doesn't, I mean, you know, that matters for other reasons, but for this purpose, it doesn't matter. And it's another way, it's another vote for asana as a practice. Because it's such a powerful tool for meditation. Okay. All right. So the root word yuj, Y-U-J for yoga can be synonymous with samadhi. So sam plus a plus da, or what becomes d. Sam means together, like the sum of things, same root, sum. A means, it means back to whatever noun preceded the syllable. So sam, a is back together. And then da or d is to put or to place or to hold. So we're putting ourselves back together. But what is being put back together? Because I thought we were supposed to pull it apart. I was supposed to pull those layers apart to find Purusha. So here comes the analogy of the chariot, grabbing hold of the reins. So the horses are the sense faculties, the nose, the ears, the skin, the tongue, the eyes. The path or the trail is the stuff that we're pulled towards, that our senses want more of or less of to run away, and the mind is the reins that hold the horses, and the person driving the chariot is the wisdom mind, prajna, or the seer, the witness. No, it's not the seer. It's the person, the higher consciousness that operates the things with wisdom. And the person, the rider in the back of the chariot is Purusha, is what we're after. So putting back together all of the pieces to see that we're just riding along. That's what we're putting back together. We're not putting back together the horses with the food that they want, with the reins, with the driver wanting to like it. No, it's not that. It's putting back together how all those pieces fit together in the larger picture. So again, with Kierkegaard having to understand backwards but move forward, the chariot is moving forward, but the destination is taking a back seat to it all. There's the analogy also of the new archer, the person just learning how to pull the bow back and release the arrow with purpose. And so in the beginning, learning archery is you're focusing on larger objects and then progressively smaller ones until you can hit the bullseye. So going from the coarse to the fine is how we're focusing. And the analogy of the archer comes up in so much of this literature, most prominently in the Bhagavad Gita, because Arjuna is an archer. And so this is a powerful teaching of like how to be on your point of focus, to pull back that bow and release the arrow with purpose so that you hit your mark. The word for sin in Greek, I think it's harmartia, and it means missing your mark. So we're moving from what is grasped to who is doing the grasping, and finally we're seeing that that grasping doesn't have to take place at all. So I wanted to celebrate the analogy of the archer by doing archer's pose, and that'll be our next little practice. And this is where you want a strap, because just trust me, you want a strap. All right. So let's start in Baddha Konasana. So knees apart, soles of the feet together, sit up tall. Heart high, shoulders broad, breath clear. So what are we doing here really? We're offering ourselves an object of meditation, and in this case it is the shape, the body. And we're working with the play of the mind that wants to have opinions about the body, that wants to say it's no good or it's so good. It just is. Okay, now bring the knees together, extend one leg forward, flex the foot, put the other knee back out again. Turn and face the straight leg. So naturally the pelvis or the navel will align to the center between the two thighs. So you'll take a little twist toward the straight leg. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, belly toward your knee, and then just drop your hands wherever they land comfortably. Take a breath. Lift the heart. Let the belly be the lowest point and the heart be the highest point. And then come back up and switch legs. We're doing this a little fast just because of time. Flex the foot, turn and face the straight leg. Inhale, reach up. Keep the back of the thigh grounded on that straight leg. Exhale, belly toward your knee, hands to wherever. Breathe. And back up. Bend the knee, both knees bent, pause, straighten out the first leg again. Keep this knee bent and facing upright. Hold it with one crook, an elbow crook. And then walk the foot out a little bit, just a couple of inches. And then lift up and lean forward over your straight thigh. And take your other hand and reach down that leg. Grab something. It doesn't matter what. Yeah. And then back up. Other side. Lift up. So you're lifting up and out of the pelvis, up and out of the base, the coarse base. Exhale, fold over the straight leg. Reach for something. And then back up. Switch legs again. This time, instead of folding down over the straight leg, we're going to lean back a little bit and then put your arm under your bent knee and lift it up. And then just start to roll around on the pelvis, back and forth, just rock. Maybe little circles, circles the other way. And then center. And then lift the shin and pull the knee in close. It's like, you know, happy baby when you're on your back, like half, this is like a half happy baby, but seated. Other side, same thing. Grab under the knee, roll around. Ooh, crunchy in there sometimes. All right, pause at center, hold it up high. And release. Okay, here comes archer pose. Grab your strap, loop it around your straight leg, foot, your straight leg's foot. And then hold it with the same side hand. So we are going to be simultaneously reaching down toward this foot, using the strap as a stand-in, and the other leg comes up, and this time hold the foot instead of behind the knee. And this is archer's pose. And if you look at the link that I sent you earlier, you'll see John Schumacher doing this in a very glorious, glamorous, finished fashion. But I vote that we are as finished as we need to be, and however we are. So we are on our point of focus. And if we don't believe that we are, we're working our way back. And yeah, you can play with, like we just did, Maria, straightening the leg or bending it deeply. You can do whatever you want. And then let's gently find the other side. So what happens in asana practice that's so powerful is that what may look on the outside like an approximation of what we believe to be a finished posture is actually a full expression of where we are in any given moment, an absolute invitation to clear the field of the prakritic chitta and just to be and just to see the beingness with love and light. It's not a cliche. I mean, it is, but it's a worthy one. All right. Okay. Archer's pose. Okay, any thoughts? And if you stepped back before, you can step forward now. The floor is wide open. Any thoughts?
That was fun.
Any experience that made this make sense? Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. You know, these postures were not named by accident. There's a story for every single one of them. I don't know them all, but I know that there is. The mythology is quite rich in that regard. And you know, to some extent, something I like to say about religion, and this is from, you know, I'm in divinity school, so understand that it comes from a sincere place, but that religion is useful mythology. It's useful, you know, it only turns bad when it becomes used for means that are destructive. Okay, that was a sidetrack. Sutra 1.20, samadhi is attained by faith, strength, memory, tranquility, and wisdom. So the yogi must have shraddha, clarity of mind, belief in the goal, like a benevolent mother supporting the yogi till the very end, always there, always believing. Shraddha is faith. Virya, energetic, endeavor, action, power, vitality, virality, virya, virasana, warrior pose. There it is. Smriti, it means memory, but it also means an undisturbed mind. It means you remember what your goal is, why you're here. It also can mean memory of scriptural knowledge. So memorizing, there are a lot of lists in Indian traditional philosophy, lots of lists to remember. Memory. To come back to like, oh yes, I am just a pile of 5 things that are dissolving all the time. This is funny to me. Samadhi is the 4th step on the way to samadhi. You can't define a word with the word in it. Nevertheless, it's here. Patanjali did it. And it means, in this case, undeviated concentration. It's like the flow state. It's the absence of distraction. It is in Buddhism, samadhi means concentration. It doesn't mean bliss. There's no such thing as bliss in Buddhism. So again, the interplay and the borrowing of ideas and terms and using them to mean different things. We've got a gazillion words in English that that mean 2 different things. And some of them mean the opposite at the same time. One of my favorite words is sanction. It means to punish, and it also means to condone. How did that happen? But anyway, also sidetrack. Number 5, prajna, the ability to distinguish Purusha from any aspect of Prakriti, the understanding, the wise, discriminatory, not in the bad way, view. The word viveka comes up a lot, and it means to dissect. Vi is similar to the root as our bi, to two things, like bisect. So and dissect also, same thing. It's dividing. So viveka is discernment, but literally translated, it means discrimination, to separate what is and what isn't, to separate what is your point of focus and what we are leaving behind, to return to the point of focus. Sutra 1.23, this state, samadhi, is attainable from devotion to God. I said it. Remember last week I said the Yoga Sutras are dualistic and theistic. They worship a sense of God. And in this sense, its name is Ishvara. And Ishvara is not Purusha. What? Because we want to say, oh, Atman is Brahman, is Purusha, is Ishvara, all the same. They're not all the same. So remember I said there's only one Prakriti and one field and many Purushas, many eyes seeing that field, but there's only one Ishvara. So there's a hierarchy. And you don't have to know this to know this, but it might be helpful. So Ishvara is different and special because Ishvara is untouched by karma, untouched by obstacles. Purusha is very much touched by karma because Purusha is trapped in this body and at the mercy of everything we do. And also, Purusha's potential to be liberated is dependent on our karma, on our actions. But Ishvara is untouched, omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Always there, knows all, and is all powerful. And that's the highest goal, is that we are devoted and that we will find Ishvara and its presence. So there's also a debate between the different schools, and I'm not even gonna, no, it's 10 of 9. I'm not gonna go into that now. But just know that in some schools there is only one Purusha, but I don't want to confuse you. We're talking about the Yoga Sutras. This is what the Yoga Sutras say. It's an interesting question. Maybe I'll come back to it next week. Will you remind me, Andrea? Just remind me the Purusha debate. Okay. Sutra 1.27 is Om. This is where we meet Om. This is why we chant Om in a yoga studio. And I love that this is 127 because that's my birthday. And I love that, like, my birthday is like a sweet little special sutra. Om is the sonic incarnation, is the sound of Brahman. And remember that Brahman, I think I said this last week, is that which expands. This is the source that Kierkegaard said we have to understand backwards in order to move forwards through it. It's the source from which all that is becoming. When we internalize Brahman and we relinquish the individual self in order to directly experience the universal self, that when we internalize that becomes a fire of wisdom. And when we start talking about the yamas and niyamas next week, the niyama tapas is that fire, that burning away of the impurities to realize the absolute. So Brahman, ironically, is never mentioned in the sutras, but Ishvara is the common denominator too, and it is expressed by Om. Another way of saying it is that, or another commentary gives the analogy of Ishvara as light and Om as the lamp. So it turns it on. We're gonna stop there. Because we gotta chant Om and let this sink in. We'll do that one next week. You mean so what? Oh, the Antarayas? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So when we chant Om, what we are doing is turning on the lamp that allows us to shine the light on Ishvara, on this common denominator that is omnipresent and omniscient and omnipotent, that transcends and allows us to transcend even just within the experience of the sound, the chitta vrittis. That's what we're doing when we chant. And we're doing it with full respect of where it came from and what it means, and humility and honor and gratitude. So we'll do it, we'll do 3 times together. Start with a big breath in and exhale everything out. And then another breath, big inhale. And together. Om. 2 more. Om. Bring your palms together at your heart. And I thank you. It's 9 o'clock on the nose. Are there any last burning thoughts, questions, ideas that anybody wants to share?
I have a
Michelle?
request.
Yeah.
Can and if you have the opportunity and it's in your spirit to do so, can you give us the reading early as possible?
Yes, that would be really great, wouldn't it? That would mean I would need to have planned the class early enough to give me the reading. So far,
Just
I have not.
I understand how that works. So if it falls in your spirit, I'm not putting any pressure on you or anything. But if it falls in your spirit to do so,
It would be
please do.
amazing if I could do that, because then I wouldn't. So I get nothing else done on Wednesdays, right? Like, this is the day I wake up and I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? What are we going to do? And I sit there all day with this And I should make a reel of myself, like sitting in my chair in my office, sitting at my desk, sitting on the patio, sitting on the rooftop, sitting at lunch with the book and the laptop and like all over the house, because I can't sit in one place for hours on end. My brain gets too fried. But maybe I could spend my Saturday that way instead. Thank you, Michelle, for the request, and I'll see what this next week.
And the only reason I ask is because the material is so rich and you give us so much.
Absolutely.
And you know, to be able to kind of really like that exercise that you gave us where we did the loop thing, you know, the competitive motion, that loop, that was a beautiful
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Right. And that was really very helpful.
Good. Good.
And given the opportunity to kind of absorb some of it before you start going through all of it, I think it would sink in deeper, and the conversation would be a richer conversation.
Fair point. And yeah, I hear you. All right, I'm motivated.
That was the nicest way to make a request I've ever heard in my life. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the recording and listen to this. If the spirit moves you, I love it. I'm gonna use that.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, check your email.